Good morning, this is Mission Control Houston. Welcome and thank you for joining us for today's edition of ISS Update this Wednesday, April 18. We are coming to you live from inside the International Space Station Flight Control Room, where the team here has been monitoring the systems aboard the station and also supporting the day's activities of the Expedition 30 crew members. Leading the Orbit 2 team here in the Station Flight Control Room today is Flight Director Heather Rarick, shown here in the right-hand side of your screen, and also Josh Matthew, who is serving as Capcom, relaying all ground messages up to the crew. The 6 crew members aboard the station now include NASA astronaut and commander of the complex Dan Burbank, and flight engineers and cosmonauts Anton Shkaplerov and Anatoly Ivanishyn, as well as NASA astronaut Don Pettit, cosmonaut Oleg Kononenko, and European Space Agency astronaut Andrei Kuipers. Commander Burbank, Shkaplerov, and Ivanishyn arrived at the orbiting complex mid-November last year. They will complete their 158th consecutive day in space today, with just a little more than a week left of their 5.5-month stay aboard the space station. Meanwhile, Pettit, Kononenko, and Kuipers launched to the space station 4 months ago on December 21st, arriving at the station 2 days later and making up the complete crew of Expedition 30 that is now aboard the space station. Today marks 120 days in space for Pettit, Kononenko, and Kuipers. The space station with its crew aboard is now flying at an altitude of about 248 statute miles. The orbiting facility is making an east-southeastern track headed toward a night pass across the deserts of Kazakhstan, which is also the landing site of the Soyuz TMA-22 that will be carrying Burbank, Shkaplerov, and Ivanishyn back home next week on April 27th. On orbit, the expedition crew members continue to work on a variety of science experiments, perform maintenance to their home away from home, and also prepare for several comings and goings of various spacecraft to and from the International Space Station. Today, Station Commander Dan Burbank continues work he began earlier this morning to remove and replace a hydrogen sensor of the oxygen generator system. He will then take a short break from it to conduct some battery maintenance to the onboard spacesuits that are used in a spacewalk outside the complex. Also, flight engineers Don Pettit and Andrei Kuipers are busy practicing for the capture of the first commercial spacecraft known as Dragon to arrive at the International Space Station. The pair will perform 3 grapple practice sessions today using the station's Canadarm2 during the dry run. SpaceX's Dragon is set to launch from NASA's Kennedy Space Center at the end of the month on April 30th. Meanwhile, Anton Shkaplerov and Oleg Kononenko are prepping the Progress 46 cargo craft for its departure with final closeout activities. The hatches have been closed and the pair are now working on a leak pressure check of the hatches. The cargo craft is set to undock from the space station at 6:04 a.m. Central Time. Tomorrow morning, we'll bring you live coverage of the vehicle's undocking here on NASA television starting at 5:45 a.m. Earlier this morning, Station Commander Dan Burbank spent some time testing the quality of the water on board the station, conducting a total iodine analysis of onboard water samples. He also performed a preventative maintenance inspection of emergency equipment, including the fire extinguishers and breathing apparatus that would be used by crew members in an emergency event aboard the station. Later, he set up for and began what will be about 3.5 hours of work today to remove and replace that hydrogen sensor of the oxygen generator system. And also, flight engineer Don Pettit is spending some time working with Robonaut, the dexterous humanoid robot that is aboard the International Space Station. He assembled the robot and powered it up for some work with it that will be done during today's update hour. Also, flight engineer Andrei Kuipers performed 3 separate rebreathing exercises as part of an ongoing study known as CARD. That experiment studies blood pressure decreases in the human body exposed to microgravity for long periods of time as that of a station resident. Later today, Station Commander Burbank will continue to wrap up his work swapping out the hydrogen sensor of that oxygen generator system, and he'll participate in a regular private psychological conference. Meanwhile, Burbank's Soyuz crewmates, cosmonauts Anton Shkaplerov and Anatoly Ivanishyn, will spend some time with preparations for the trio's departure next week. Burbank, Shkaplerov, and Ivanishин, who launched from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan aboard their Soyuz TMA-22 last November, are wrapping up their final week and days aboard the International Space Station as they will prepare to return back to Earth on April 27. At the day's end, each crew member will have exercised to maintain its physical fitness and help mitigate the negative effects of microgravity on their bodies. The Expedition 30 crew members will do some evening prep work for another busy day in space tomorrow. They will then participate in their final daily planning conference with ground controllers around the world before entering their pre-sleep period. The crew is then scheduled to go to bed at 4:30 p.m. Central Time. This is Mission Control Houston.